Welcome to a new podcast. This is called the Trybe Dream Teams podcast. This is all about connecting with our different team members over here. And then today I have Lukas Kulbis with me. He's one of our new team members, leadership and breathwork coach. Also, does a lot of like business development for us, connects with, a lot of our partners and clients and stuff like that. But he does a lot of work in the breathwork space, and I'm ready to talk to him about why he joined our team. What was one of the reasons he wanted to, connect with us, and what did he fall in love with around our vision, our values, and then I also want to dive deep into his own hero's journey, is his own journey of where he was when he was just starting his career, and what has led him to this point to come and join our team. Welcome to the podcast, Lukas. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Sheldon. A lot of gratitude coming out of me right now. I have this phrase of go big, begin in gratitude. And I think that just sets the tone for everything that we do. And I actually like adding a twist to that, go big, breathe in gratitude. And that really sets the tone, not just on a mental or intentional sort of level, but also throughout your whole body. So really a pleasure to be on here. Happy to share my story. And thank you for creating this space for us to connect.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I mean, let's start off with where like you've joined Trybe, a team recently, and you're among the first few, almost like founding members on our team. Tell me about what resonated with you to want to come and be part of this initiative, this purpose, and I can go into a little bit more of that. But tell me your point of view first, like what connected, why you're here, like why did you connect with our why as well?
I think it's the human touch. Tribe really has that human touch, in an age of building a trustless society with, crypto and AI, you don't know what's true on the media anymore. Like just the organic connection that we had, and along every single step of the way, there was such an embodiment of the stated values of Tribe in the way that I was being treated, in the way that Tribe, you, Jess, were interacting with me. I just really felt seen and validated as like a whole person rather than just someone who can help you meet your financial goals. And so what really resonated with me is eye contact, saying my name, these simple things, but they go a long way of truly asking me like, okay, where am I at? What are my personal goals? How can we align them to Tribe's goals? And also the humility that you, Sheldon, and Jess also have in creating this. It's truly purpose driven. You have this vision, this mission of helping to empower leaders to transform workspaces into thriving communities. And that's something that truly resonates with me. And so it spoke beyond my need for a job and finances. It spoke to my heart, it like moved my soul even, that not only were you saying these things, not only have you been working on bringing this vision to life, but you are embodying those values in terms of how you are going to get there. So really what spoke to me was that human touch and the alignment of my values to the vision that you have expressed.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. I mean, I think when I met you for the first time, I immediately knew that you would be, I could sense it, that you're the right kind of fit for what we're trying to do in the world. Like, as you said, our values, our vision is to, transform the workplace. Like leaders are transforming the workplace into thriving communities, right? And for that vision to come to life, you need to have the right people who can embody that vision, right? Because I come from a work where my career has been kind of fraught with a lot of toxic environments and bad leaders, and I cracked this joke where people laugh, like I was looking for mentors, but I kept finding tormentors. Now I realize the tormentors were also teaching me along the way and helping me to grow, right? But this comes in maturity and time and stuff like that. But when I was just starting, it was hard, it was tough, and I think Tribe was born out of that pain, and that pain has now become purpose. And I think when people like you have come into the realm of existence that we're in right now with what we're trying to create, you're connecting with that purpose. And that purpose has so much of light in it. Like I always say, like, not only is light greater than darkness, but greater is the light that was born in darkness, right? And for me, my purpose almost was born in that darkness, right? I was born in that pain, and almost like life was training me and teaching me to become this leader for the next generation. And in fact, I felt isolated and alone through my journey. But now with people like you, I feel so connected. I feel so like empowered myself as a leader, because you're letting me be the truest version of me as a leader, because I can feel the acceptance that you give me, and the courage and the trust that you build with me is at a whole nother level. And I've never experienced that in my whole career. And the fact that I was waiting for a leader through all my careers, like, when am I going to find the leader? And then realizing that when I hit my 40s, I was the leader that I was waiting for. And now I get to, empower other leaders, like the emerging leaders like yourself, Lucas, to be there as well. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that so much. Um, Tell me a little bit more about your journey. Like, where did your whole career start? I mean, if you had to talk about, what you're doing right now, you have evolved and you have had your own arc and your own hero's journey. Where did this whole journey start for Lucas? Where did the hero's journey start?
Yeah, this has been a question that has, and like a story that has taken on several different forms throughout my life. Every couple of years I reevaluate my life and the story just goes further and further back. And so now really my story is rooted in like my childhood and how I was raised, and like the foundations of my identity. So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 7 years old. And so this is an autoimmune disease in which my body can't create insulin. 100 years ago, that's basically a death sentence, but they've come up with modern medicine. But essentially, I've always needed to like check in with myself. And so like check my blood glucose levels. And so I went through life, being like checking in with myself constantly, like to my body. And I needed to regulate like the food that I eat, the insulin that I take. But in essence, I studied computer science at the University of Illinois, and I was just sort of looking for something with a little bit more meaning. And so I did have a computer science job. I did co-found a startup for reinventing the wake up experience. And so that was truly like fulfilling to, give people the tools that they need in order to self-create, self-author their life, because there are so many demands and pressures and things that you need to be, things that you need to do, that like this was truly an opportunity of like, hey, take the first 90 seconds of your day to set your tone, to feed your vision, to self-create who you are becoming. And so I had a different vision than the other founder, and so we went our ways. But essentially then I had a whole lot of adventures, I guess you could say, but ultimately throughout, traveling to a completely different country where I didn't know the culture, the language, and trying to figure out what is next on my journey. What should I be doing right now? And, through the pandemic, trying to make sense of like, what's happening. Throughout all of it, I always had my breath. And so one day I was in like a sort of depressive mood, during the pandemic stages. And my friend sat me down. He's like, 15 minutes, let's do a breath work session. And I was like, what is breath work? Like I'd been doing some meditation, but didn't really understand breath work. And so just 15 minutes of a Wim Hof session. And I instantly like had space from all of the stresses and pressures of my body, because through my diabetes, my body was a burden. I was a burden. And that, just tolerating it then built resentment. And so this breathwork sort of gave me some space to sort of see myself from a more objective way, in which I could understand that I can choose. Yes, there's demand, financial pressures, relationship problems, health concerns, but I can still choose consciously. I can choose the direction that I want to take my life. And so that really just kind of put me into a different mode of really living with purpose, of consciously creating what I'm doing and choosing my highest values and then living by them. So that sort of, like I mentioned, led me to Trybe. But really it's been this journey of connecting with myself, And even
Mhm.
you mentioned like you've never felt so connected with a team before. Like that connection with ourself, with the people around us, with the environment, with the divine, however you understand that. Like that connection is so core to what it is to be human. And I think that that's really what we are needing. That's what people are striving for. We're meaning creating social creatures. And that connection allows us to put our life into context to then truly feel good about ourselves and what we're doing.
Yeah, I truly believe that, and I think as a society, we are finally, I think, coming to a place. At least from my own life's experience, I think we're coming to a place of accepting people for who they are, and authenticity has become this huge kind of I wouldn't call it driver, but it's kind of like people are hungry for it. They're like, hey, we need to have more authentic conversations, authentic relationships that is built on trust, that's built on a foundation where we are here to serve one another and help one another. But I like that your journey led you to a friend saying, hey, let's just do a breathwork session. And that shifted something for me as well. Wim Hof has been something that I've been practicing now for over 2 years now. I struggled with breath myself for a very, very long time. I've had allergies and breathing problems for a very, very long time. And yeah, starting the breath work that I started, like with the Wim Hof stuff, really helped me to understand like how much that was affecting me, like not having a full breath and stuff like that. So right now, while we're on the podcast, if someone's watching this live or watching this later on, do you mind if you can guide us through a quick breath work exercise so that people can experience what we're talking about, like and how effective it can be to just stop and let the breathing and let the breath kind of calm your whole nervous system down. Like, are you open to do that right now for us?
Yes, my pleasure.
All
I'm
right.
I'm on a mission to help the world breathe better. So every
Yes.
opportunity that I have to spread this is is truly an honor, I feel like in my purpose. So I consider myself more of a facilitator where I create the space and give you the tools for you to connect with your breath. But ultimately, like any sort of guided breath work, any sort of advice that you receive, it's just an opportunity for you to connect more deeply to yourself.
Mhm.
Because that connection that you have with your body, that connection that you have with your breath, it doesn't get much more intimate than that. And so like the first lesson is like listen to yourself. Like that's the
Yes.
first rule. But to give you the my favorite breath work, which is popularized by Andrew Huberman, it's called the
Okay.
physiological sigh. And so this is basically a way to bring your body back into the baseline, whether you're overstimulated, understimulated. This just helps you come into the moment. So what
Okay.
it is, it's going to be a double inhale through your nose and then elongate the exhale through your mouth. And we can all do this together. Take a full inhale, fully filling up, and then fill in the last little bit, and then let it go through your mouth. And you can continue doing this while I explain it a little bit deeper. On the first breath, when you're learning, you can also put a hand on your belly, one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. And you really want to fill up your bottom first, fully breathing into your belly on that first one, and then filling up the chest, and then letting it go. And you can make it super dramatic and big, or you can do it very subtly. Even if you're having a conversation on a Zoom call with someone, washing dishes, driving even, you can do it in a subtle way where it's more relaxed, like. And so I will typically do 3 of these. It'll bring me back instantly, but you can also extend it for 3 minutes of this breath. And it's really just follow the breath and it'll bring you more deeply into yourself. Most Americans, we're just breathing in the top 20% of our lungs. And so
Yeah,
this then
almost really shallow. Like I remember being doing that. Like almost I felt like the breath would only stop over here and never go all the way down. But yeah, you're right. Most Americans, yeah, it's a very
yeah.
shallow breathing, and it's almost like when you're stressed, you also breathe really shallow, right? So it's almost like we're being in this stressed, almost sympathetic mode, like instead of being in the rest and relax, digest parasympathetic state. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Like, what's happening in society that people are like always in this kind of shallow breathing kind of zone?
Yeah, this is great point that you bring up. So essentially, our brain waves and our breathing patterns, like they like overlap in the brain. Like the
Okay.
spaces that control those overlap. So you have this constant feedback cycle between your breath and your brain, or your brain and your body. And so many people are breathing in this shallow, stressed, sort of fight or flight sort of way because, well, how are we living? We're always late. We always have more things to do. We're always rushing. We need more, more, more. And so we're living in that sort of way. And so that's then reflected in our body, which then reflects to our brain that we need to be stressed because, there's a lot of demands. And so it's this negative sort of feedback cycle. Now, it's hard to think your way out of it because, well, this brain body connection, we have afferent nerves and efferent nerves. The
Okay.
afferent nerves go from your brain to your organs, essentially, to your body. Like, and it like dictates your motions, your movement, that sort of thing. So from your brain down to your body, it's like around 20%. But then we have all of the nerves that create our senses, your sense of touch, of taste, of like within your organs. And so for that, that's like around 80% of the nerves. And so it's
Okay.
harder to like think your way, take this top down approach into changing your state if you notice you're stressed. And it's easier to physically change how you are being, your state of being, and then that will then change your mindset. So it's taking this sort of bottom up approach. And so just by changing your breathing, you can create a state change in your mind and how you are living.
Yeah, I love the theory behind it. I've been studying a little bit about heart brain coherence as well. I'm still a novice on it, so please, anyone is listening to this, this is just me sharing my experience. I'm not trying to teach you this, but something that I learned was that in the 1990s, the HeartMath Institute of in California found out that the heart has its own neural network, right? So that means our brain has its own neural networks. You can think and process, but the heart also has its own neural network. And then the research also found like the gut also has its kind of information hub, and it's in fact the gut and the heart are sending a way more information to the brain than the other way around actually. And in the modern world, we are living in this very, let's call it think, always trying to think our way out of everything. Like, we're trying to strategize and we're trying to grind it out and we're trying to make it work. And it's always like everyone's very cerebral in the approach about how we can go about things. But I like what you're talking about, which is like connecting with the body. The body is, of course, we have sensations in the body. We have, feelings and emotions that we experience in the body. And then there's the heart, in the information that's in the neural network of the heart, the information that's in the gut, that's sending things back. And sometimes a lot of it is stored in there from some sort of experience we've had in our life. It could be, big T trauma, small T trauma. It could be just a, surprising event that happened at some point. And, I always talk about like, almost like, how we have in the business world when we're trying to hire someone, we have a CV, right? People are like, hey, what's your CV? It's all your different experiences, right? As human beings, we have all gone through a lot of like conscious versions of ourselves as well through our life. So I call those our CVs as well, just to simplify it and create a concept. And sometimes certain conscious versions of us, whether it was a young child or a teenager or a young adult, or right now in your life, something must have happened, a traumatic experience, and that information was stored somewhere in our body. Maybe it was stored in our, how we felt in our heart at that time, or how we felt in our gut, or how we felt in our body. And oftentimes I've noticed when I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs who are, striving to grow their businesses, or even just generally leaders who are trying to like grow, many of the conversations start at a tactical, cerebral level. We're trying to think things like what happened, how do we analyze this, what was the measurement, what was the data, and then eventually it slips into us. Okay, which conscious version of you was affected by this time that something happened to you, and what's the memory and what's the story that's coming up that affected you? And can we look at that and rewire the story a little bit? Because if you try to like just strategize all the time, maybe strategy is the final solution that we need, but the strategy is blocked by a story that's a subconscious story that we're repeating to ourselves. And that subconscious story is creating a state in our body, right? It's a state of being that we feel, and we're not able to get out of that state. We're not able to get out of that story, that looping story that we have. And it's so subconscious that sometimes we don't even know that is a story from a different time, from a different conscious version of us. So I totally resonate with everything that you're talking about, which is like, hey, wow, this body, mind, the heart, brain coherence is such an important, aspect that we need to look at in modern society, because we are bombarded with so much of stimulus all the time that the only way to find that inner peace, to find that connection with ourselves, is to actually settle down with breath into our body and go from there. And then we can analyze, okay, where is the story coming from? Is it coming from a different version of me? How can I revisit that version of me? How can I find forgiveness? How can I find gratitude? How can I find love within that version of me, so I can feel seen from that time, and then have this kind of release, a detachment towards that, whatever that trauma was, or the entanglement was in my mind, to find a sense of peace, a sense of calm. And usually for me, that is worked through like trying to find a way to forgive that version of me and forgive whoever treated me in that in that traumatic experience, or whatever experience it was. And through there finding gratefulness, going, oh, life was not just happening to me, but it was also happening for me. And if I can visualize and see the for me, we can now use that as a way to grow. And maybe life is calling on to me right now in this moment, not just to change my strategy, but to change my state, change my story, and then come up with a new strategy, right? So, and I know we've talked about this in one of our team meetings as well, but coming back to what you were saying, the connection with the body, I think that's the first step, the state of being, because we're in this thinking, saying, and doing loop, like almost like this hamster wheel that we're constantly on. But if we can just settle down into the being, like, how are we being? Are we being frustrated while we're thinking, saying, and doing? Or are we being grateful while we're thinking, saying, and doing? It changes the experience completely. So are there any examples or exercises or mindfulness practices that you can share with anyone, where someone's really in that thinking, saying, doing loop and hamster wheel, and they want to find a way to settle down, and they haven't been able to connect with their breath, they haven't been able to connect with their body or the states of being? Is there some practice that you have trained in that you can help people being, try this out and see if you can come down to this state, and then from there develop a better strategy? Any thoughts around that?
Plenty of thoughts around that. And, my first response to that is like, meet yourself where you are at. And this is also a testament to Trybe, of meeting me where I was at, and then understanding my situation. And then for us to come together, working together to best for both of us. And so I wanted to preface this with what you said about, like, it's so important for us to be good in our bodies. Like, the ability to self-regulate is one of the greatest tools that you can invest in this modern age. Because, everyone wants your time and your attention, and who is giving that time and attention to you unless you're investing in it? Like, who is taking care of your most valuable asset? Like yourself, that body that then determines everything that you do. So really, this concept of like learning how to manage your nervous system specifically, and your stress, and your the specific needs that you have in your body. For me, it was diabetes, right? And I'm still working through that, but that is truly the greatest offering that you can give to yourself, and also the greatest gift that you can give to the world. Because when you feel safe and good in yourself, you naturally want to help. We are social beings. We want to help. We want to share our gifts, share our values, share the unique talents that we are endowed with. Like, that's a primal desire for us. But we don't do that because we feel scared. We feel tense. We feel like we need to protect ourselves. So if you're able to recognize you have food, you have a roof over your head, we have all of the resources in terms of what we need to stay alive and as individuals. but it's more of like the social, intellectual, like you're saying, the mental loops that we're in that's causing us this stress, and then that's causing us to sort of close up.
Yeah.
So if you're able to relax, then you will naturally want to give your best, and ultimately that's the best for you, and it's the best for the world. Like, I want to see your gifts, I want to see your talents, because, well, we are team 21st century, and there are some big challenges in front of us. We have to come up with some sort of solution or creative way of going about these technological growth, the environmental challenges, the war and nuclear
Mhm.
things and pathogens. Like, this is not just about you, your tribe, your community. This is about team 21st century humanity. And so I want to give these practices because it's not just about you, and like, you're not alone, right? But it's not just for you either. This is beyond yourself. And so really tapping into that sort of service, that gratitude, I think
Yeah.
that is sort of the key for doing the work on yourself so you could show up. So to answer your question, that was the preface. To answer your question of
Yes.
how can you implement this, I know you're super busy. You have so much to do already, but every single thing that you're doing, you're also breathing while doing it.
Mhm.
So I
Yes.
like to just take a few things, start with one, and then you add a couple. It's habit stacking. So take some habits that you're doing when you brush your teeth, when you click in the seatbelt, when you sit down for a meal, before you open up your computer. Choose a specific time in your life, and I want you to visualize it right now. Like, choose
Okay.
one habit, one thing that you do every single day. And then while you're doing that thing, I want you to just bring your awareness to your breath. You don't need to control it yet. You don't need to do anything. Just bring that awareness to yourself, who you are, what you're doing. I'm brushing my teeth. I am brushing my teeth. That's what I'm doing. And I'm breathing. Just have that in mind. And that's a way to sort of settle your mind. Or, okay, I clicked in my seatbelt. I'm taking a breath. I'm going to drive. And then you sort of bring your attention to your breath in a way. And then if you want to add on to that, this heart brain coherence that you're speaking of, there is actually a, well, ancient wisdom tradition and modern science that
Mhm.
comes to a certain breath, which is the 5.5 coherence breath, or the 10-second, 11-second synchronicity breath. So essentially what it is, it's breathing in for 5.5 seconds, breathing out for 5.5 seconds in a circular fashion. Now, if you do that 5.5 times, that's about 5.5 breaths per minute. And so that number, 5, 6, doesn't matter exactly, just relatively the same amount in and out, and deeper and like slower, deeper breaths into your belly. That'll bring your heart and your brain into coherence. So I would really recommend it in the transition from your work, your busy activity, into the wind down, into the sleep. Like, that's, I have found in my life and those of the people who I've worked with, to be like the key moment to just take 1 minute to, check in on yourself. How are you doing? Because yes, there's people who care about you, but no one cares about, like, no one has the ability to help you out as much as you can help yourself.
That's
And
right.
so just that simple exercise, take one keystone habit, implant it that, okay, when I do this habit, I'm going to bring my awareness to my breath. And then you can add on to that, I'm going to slow down my breath and come into a heart brain coherent state.
I love that. I love that. That's such a simple, way to connect with ourselves. I was actually doing it while you were talking, like trying to
Yeah.
do 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. And while you were just, I could feel my whole body just starting to relax, just getting into a very calm, peaceful state. And I was thinking about one activity that I do every day. I'm always wake up in the morning, and the first thing I go, like, brush my teeth or whatever, and then I go and do the dishes. I'm like, okay, while I'm doing the dishes, I could just be like, breathe in and breathe out. It's a, time I'm just by myself, just doing something which is tactile, right? Most of my day, I'm just sitting in front of the laptop and talking and doing strategizing, but that's something that's tactile. I can do that during that time and feel it. So yeah, I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm going to keep that in mind for tomorrow morning when I wake up. I'm going to be like 5 seconds, 5.5 seconds, 5.5 seconds out, like breathing in, breathing out. And while you were talking, as I was doing that, I was like, wow, this feels really relaxing and calming. And I could do this at any time. It's available to me at any time. I could be in a meeting, I could be working on something, implementing something, but I could just tap into this resource that's available. And it's like, I don't need to go anywhere. It's right here. Breath is with me all the time. And I can use it to, help myself to be in a calmer state, in a parasympathetic state where my whole body, all my senses just feel relaxed and calm. Right. Yeah. Like you mentioned something in there that I wanted to touch on as well. You talked about feeling safe within, right? This is something that I'm noticing is a huge problem in society right now, where a lot of people don't feel safe in the environments they're in. And a lot of them then by proxy get into the state where they're just not feeling safe within themselves as well. And this is something that we've noticed that in the workplace is a huge, huge problem, right? Psychological safety is something that we talk about a lot in team culture. And in fact, I want to reference this study by Google, which is called the Google Aristotle Project, where they were looking at different teams around the world, because they had multiple teams at that time around the world, and Google's a global business, and they're in different cultures and different countries, and different people with different ethnicities and all of that. And they were looking at, like, why do our high performance teams perform really well? Like, what's the common denominator? And in the beginning, they thought that, oh wow, it could be performance in terms of, like, we have good implementers, or people who can strategize really well, or people who can work really fast, or whatever it is. And after they went through a lot of research, and they involved a lot of, like, academic researchers as well, like Amy Edmondson was prolific in this. She has written the book Fearless Organization, which is part of our research in Trybe. And the one thing that they found that every high performance team had was, every high performance team, the reason they were able to perform really well was because they had a leader that created psychological safety. Right? And if we think about that, if performance, flow states, synergy, team dynamics is cultivated with psychological safety, right? How much are we missing, and how much are we not, like, how many teams I've been on where there was no psychological safety? It was like hard hitting, like, let's make this happen. A lot of stress inducing, a lot of competition, a lot of intimidation, where we are literally training people to not be in a parasympathetic state. We're training to be in a fight or flight state, which is the worst state to be in, because it's now igniting your limbic response, right? And you're not able to think through things because you get really foggy. You either want to fight, flight, or freeze. And psychological safety is the opposite, where you're actually connecting with the people, helping them to feel safe in the environment, helping them to feel safe with each other, helping them to feel safe within themselves, helping them to feel safe to raise their hand and ask for help. And that's not happening today. So from your point of view, from different teams that you've worked on, you started your own company, you've worked on different teams, like, what have you noticed out there in terms of, in correlation with psychological safety, and how teams are performing these days? Have you noticed, like, the dark side of team culture, and then also the light side, which is the beautiful growth side of team culture? Like, are there any opinions that are coming to your mind in terms of what you're noticing out there, and the stories that you're hearing about psychological safety in correlation with teams and people feeling safe with themselves?
Mm-hmm. There's this idea that comes to mind, is that, business is about people. If you take it back, whatever business decision or crossroads you're at, it's
Yeah.
going to be about the people. And
Yes.
so business problems often also come from people problems. And so what I've noticed is that, it's really about the person and the way that we relate with each other. There's
Mhm.
this there's this concept called co-regulation. And so
Okay.
essentially, when you are born, humans are the most helpless babies, infants, and you co-regulate with your mom. You take on the energetic, emotional, nervous system state of your primary caretaker. And so, when she's stressed, the baby start crying. When the mom is relaxed and happy, the baby is also happy. And so there's this, because the baby needs to attune to the mother in order for its survival. If it's disconnected, well then there's less incentive for the caretaker to take care of them. Now that kind of continues on in which even in our adult phases, we still connect with each other. There's like body language, in expressing.
Yes.
We've seen the reports. So much of it is body language, tonality, but ultimately what that comes to is the nervous system state that you are in, the state of being, which you refer to.
Exactly. Yeah, I think
And
the
so,
research shows what it's 55% is body language, 38%, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can look it up online. 55% is body language, 38% is tonality and voice, and only 7% is words. Right. So a lot of that is yeah, what you're saying is like, yeah, that's it's like how we're subliminally receiving messaging and communication from each other as well, other than the words that we're speaking to each other. So yeah, very
and
interesting.
that's mind blowing. If you just I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, no, no. And I think that's part of why, like, these AI responses, it's like, yeah, the words are there, but it's just something isn't clicking, right? But I think it's really that like energetic state that we have as humans. But essentially how this translates to teams is that we often don't recognize what states we're in and
Mhm.
what we are like projecting out to the team. And so, I don't believe that stress is bad. All living organisms, they strive for homeostasis, be good at
Mhm.
where they're at, and growth, become more.
Yes.
We need stress to grow. We need pressure to build the business to reach our goals. But that needs to come from a space of like groundedness, of like for it to truly be growing, for us to be growing in a sustainable way, it needs to be grounded in who we are and where we are. And so that can really come across when you yourself or when the leader of the team, of the organization, is at peace, good with themselves. Because then, Joe being 2 minutes late to the meeting, or some one-off thing happening, a personal problem, like that doesn't trigger this sort of like rage and all of these pent up stress. Maybe I'm stressed about something in my own relationship, and I'm
Yeah.
bringing it to the workplace, not aware that I'm bringing the stress to the workplace. And then that stress then like amplifies, ripples out into everyone else who I'm working with there. And so the opposite is also true. If I take the time to really be conscious of, I'm bringing in gratitude that I have people to work with, that I have
Mm.
something to work with. I have an opportunity for me to share my talents, or I'm bringing in clarity, or I'm bringing in this implementation or the strategy, which, I find fulfillment in doing these things. Then that sort of like expansive energy also ripples out through the team. And so it really only takes one person to shift a company culture or team dynamic one way or another, the negative way or the positive way, and you can feel it. So, as breathwork coach, I really return back to the experiential learning and understanding. It's like, just pay attention for one day, 1 week, keep a notebook, like
Yeah.
what energies are you putting out, what energies is in the room, and how does that affect your performance? And so really, I think the leader has a higher weighted influence on the team. And so just when that's made explicit or even like expressed in a way that can be felt, that we are here to build something rather than I need you to do this or else you're going to, lose your job, be homeless, and die, because that's what we're scared of. If you take your fears, the mind will
Yes.
take the fears all the way back. But like, if you can kind of like just settle and just be like, this is what we need to do, but let's do it in a good way. It's not just what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. It's not the journey, it's not just the destination, it's every step in the journey that makes
Yes.
the destination.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love that you said that yes, the leader in the team has that extra weight in terms of like how they creating that environment, but everyone in a team can bring in a presence, right? What you talked about is a presence of gratitude. What does that mean? It's just present in you right now. You are filled with gratitude, and we can, I think, ignite these kind of feelings, these states of being at any time. But of course, it needs to be a psychologically safe environment where you can feel like you can be able to be, right? Literally in our name Tribe, we have a message in there, which I didn't even realize when I came up with the name first, which is like, it's divided into two things: it's try and then be, right? And in our world, we are constantly trying, and all the trials and tribulations that are out there. But how are we being through all of that, right? If we focus on the state of being first, whatever we're trying will have another level of presence in it. And I love that message that you just talked about. So I think we're coming to the end of this podcast, and we just wanted to capture a little bit more about, you're talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs who are just starting out, and also senior entrepreneurs who are like, built teams, or people who are at a place where they're trying to grow and scale their teams and stuff like that. What kind of advice would you give to them in terms of, forming that team around them? Like, what's the way to go about it? And we talk a lot about this in Tribe, in our philosophies, and what we're teaching about, wrapping things around your vision and values. But through the conversations you've had out there, if you were sitting in front of someone who you need to give some advice to, who's trying to build a team, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I really like this idea, this quote that the level of thinking that got you here is the level of thinking that will keep you here. Like the level of consciousness that got you here is not
Yes.
going to be the one that takes you to the next level. And so it's really like, I think that entrepreneurs, they work really hard, and they have their vision and they're building, and then you reach some sort of plateau. You reach, either you are making the money but you're not feeling fulfilled, or like you're just stuck at some sort of bottleneck. And so really it's kind of like, okay, understand that, recognize that, accept that, recognize that like winners aren't winning all the time. Most of the time they're losing, but then they're winning fully. They're engaging fully in what they're doing. And so I would say really just recognize that like you need a transition of some sort of transition. And I believe that transition happens within, from entrepreneur into leader. Because like I
Yes.
mentioned earlier, like all of these business comes back to the people. And so it's like, okay, you're looking at your ideal client so much. You're taking the customer journey. Investors invest in the team and the people first off. But like, how much are you thinking about yourself as a whole person? How much are you looking at your team as the people who they are? And so, you take 20,000 breaths every single day. How many of those are working towards who you are becoming? And I think that's such a key question. Who are you becoming? Not just the person who led you here, not just the entrepreneur, but the leader who is going to take this to the next level. And so I would really say, as like practical advice, slow down, take stock of your life, and ask yourself genuinely, who am I becoming?
Mhm. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, who am I becoming? Who are we evolving into? And why are we moving into that as well, right? Sometimes we get stuck in the, you know, doing part, the trying part, and not realizing, is that really helping us in any way to become who we're striving to be, right? And I think it's such a good message in there, that yeah, we need to figure out a way to slow down, connect with ourselves, feel safe within ourselves, embody presence of, gratitude and love. I mean, at the end of it, we are all here to serve and love one another, right? It's that's really the journey of this plane of existence. And in amongst all of that, we get to do all of the tries and the doing and the thinking and the saying, and you know but we're all connected, we're all one, and we all need to be there to help each other. And whether it's you building a team, as you said, entrepreneurs need to shift from that entrepreneur mindset where I'm just building, to a leader mindset where we're building together, we're co-creating together, right? And there's a shift needed from that kind of consumer mindset where everything is like, oh, I want the instant gratification right now, to a creator mindset where we're creating together, we're nurturing. It's kind of like, planting seeds in the garden. You don't plant the seed in the garden and expect the fruit to be there tomorrow. You nurture it, you take care of it, you show up, and you water it, and you fertilize it, and all of that stuff. So I love that message so much. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, Lucas. I'm so grateful to have you on our dream team, the Tribe Dream Team, and you're someone who's out there now helping other entrepreneurs with our different team members, helping them to figure out ways of how to build their own dream team, not just connected on skill set, but also connected on the vision of the company, the why, the purpose, the impact that they're trying to create, the meaning behind all of that impact, and the goodness that comes from all of that, right? So thank you for being on this team. Thank you for choosing to embody the values that we have, the values of seeing the person first, supporting the rumble, and making things actionable. Those are three values, and you embody them every day. I see you doing an amazing job, and I'm so grateful that you've chosen to be part of this mission with us to create impact, create a positive change in the world, and create a deeper meaning within yourself that's connected to all of us as well. So that's beautiful. And we want to help other people create that within their teams as well. So if any of you are looking for some help, Lucas, our team member here, is always available to jump on a call with you. You can find we'll put some links and stuff in the bottom for you to, get some sort of free help, strategy calls. We call it strategy for clarity calls and stuff like that. But yeah, just connect. We like to connect with you as a human being. Wherever you are in your journey, whether you're talent looking for a job, or whether you're an entrepreneur looking to hire people, or just to grow your company, come and connect with us. I think we are just, it's the, what do you call it? Just the top of the iceberg. We're just scratching the surface here, but there's so much of service that we want to do in the world, which is helping people to find their people, helping them to find their tribe, because that's where we create meaning, purpose, and impact together. Are there any closing words you'd like to end off the podcast with, Lucas, as a message to anyone out there?
Just the breath.
Just
And
breathe.
yeah, just gratitude. Thank you for this opportunity to co-create a healthy, wealthy, connected world together. You,
Yes,
Sheldon, and everyone who's listening. Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. And we'll see you next time on another Tribe Dream Teams, Build Dream Teams podcast. This time we spoke with Lucas, and this is a great conversation. I'm sure I'm going to have you back on again as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. You have a good one. Cheers. Bye.